Thank you all for being here. It's great to be in Portland, fantastic book town and ideas town, and of course for those of us in the sustainability movement, what's going on out here is always joyous to behold. And whenever I come here, I go back to the East Coast inspired and excited about so much of the cultural and other kinds of transformation that's going on here. So I wrote this book to address two of the, sort of biggest, most challenging issues that we face today. The first, and I think, most overarching, is our ecological crisis, whether we're talking about climate destabilization or the running down of ecosystems around the world, whether we're talking about terrestrial ecosystems or marine ecosystems, and of course, to have the book come out in the middle of the disaster in the Gulf that's going on now, something that may end up being the most horrific environmental hazard or incident in all of our history is, it's painful and timely. So on the one hand, ecological crisis, but on the other, I began writing this book just as the economy crashed. We had the global financial panic in the fall of 2008, and I'd been sort of circling around, sort of trying to figure out, well, exactly what was the angle on this book, because I'd been doing the research and so forth for a while, and once we had the financial crisis, a lot of things became clear to me about a way forward. And I saw a moment in which we could maybe step back and think more deeply and more critically about our economic system. And what the book argues is that the solution to what is now mass unemployment — we have more than 26 million people in this country who are unemployed, underemployed, or marginally attached. That is, people have dropped out of the labor force but need work. That's an extraordinary number. And the sort of roughly 10% or just under 10% official unemployment rate is only about half, or even, even a little bit less than half of what the total unemployment problem is. And this book starts from the economic prediction that what I'm calling the BAU economy, the business as usual economy, is not going to be able to solve the unemployment crisis through its ordinary means, which is growth. Just trickle down, because that's another form of trickle down, the idea that the jobs will trickle down. And even if it could, the implications on the ecological side for growth are a disaster. So I think we need a different way. And I'm gonna read a little bit from the introduction to start with about that. And then I'll come back and talk to you about Plenitude, which is my sort of what I call the solution, which I believe is actually beginning to emerge sort of at the cutting edge of culture change in the United States. In the fall of 2008, as panic swept through the financial system and the economy began to implode, there was a widespread sense that changes, even big changes, would be necessary. Business as usual was suddenly called into question. Even capitalism itself was up for discussion. Within 6 months, only 53% of adults would agree that, quote, capitalism is a better system than socialism. 20% preferred socialism, and 27% were not sure. Adults under 30 were about evenly divided between the two options. And by the way, these numbers have just been resurveyed. These questions have just been redone to the American public, and the numbers have actually held pretty steady since then, which is really, really interesting. But gradually, as conditions stabilized, the status quo reasserted itself. The mainstream conversation about how to reorganize the economy was back in neutral, especially when it came to fundamental questions about how our system is affecting the planet. Some things did change. After 3 decades of dominance, conservative economics had lost credibility. Everyone agreed that we couldn't go back to the policies of the previous decade. In the United States, the litany of no longer permissibles included the mushrooming of household debt and a national savings rate of 0, the massive excess of imports over exports, an annual flow of $453 billion for imported oil, and a financial system run amok. The country needed more savings and investment, and the constituency for getting off fossil fuels had grown. But the backdrop for these views was a return to some version of normal, albeit a slimmed-down model. As a result, what was offered were a series of band-aids: bank and insurance company handouts, tax cuts to induce spending, automobile industry bailouts, and extended unemployment benefits. Some hoped that financial regulation and healthcare reform, and those are the two things we've gotten, would be sufficient to ensure long-term stability. It's a long shot. One reason the conversation reverted to its usual outlines is that macroeconomists who focus on growth, employment, and the overall economy have been slow to incorporate ecological data into their worldview. During 2007 and 2008, the same period that the housing and credit markets were collapsing, dramatically bad news was surfacing on the climate front. Developments since the 2007 Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, whose data ended in 2006, have been grim. Arctic sea ice was melting at hitherto unimaginable rates, and oceans were rising at more than double the IPCC report's maximum possibility. Drought conditions were spreading. World emissions were up sharply in 2007, and in June of 2008, James Hansen, NASA's leading climate scientist, told Congress that the CO2 target we have been aiming for is a disaster. By February 2009, the news was worse, with scientists reporting that the speed of climate change was already beyond anything considered in the last round of models. Hansen and his colleagues warned that carbon dioxide levels beyond 350 parts per million are incompatible with preserving a planet, quote, similar to that on which civilization developed. Yet we were at 385 and rising. Yet it was as if the people charged with tending the economy were unaware of the breaking news on climate. The main conversation was about how to get more money into people's hands and how to get them back to buying cars, any cars, building more houses, whatever their dimensions, and accumulating more stuff. The bailout and recovery effort trusts trillions, yet only 6%, or $52 billion, of the stimulus was actually green. Amazingly, General Motors and Chrysler were handed $30 billion without a requirement for conversion to hybrids, much less any provision for the far more fuel-efficient mass transport that the nation desperately needed. The approach relied on reviving a highly destructive pattern of consumption and growth and the fiction that our economic system is basically sound. Barack Obama tried to do more to address ecological impacts, but has made limited progress. As the world was hurtling toward an ecological precipice of unfathomable dimensions, the macroeconomic conversation was basically about how to get there faster. So I go on to talk about economics and what has happened in economics. And a lot of the book is about the trade-off mentality of economics. The dominant view is that if we want more nature, we have to do with less of something else that we like, whether it's less stuff, so less income, fewer consumer goods, or less community or leisure or any range of a number of things in which the economists see us always operating at an optimal point in which more of one thing necessarily implies less of another. And so what we hear, and we have heard for a long time from the economics profession, was too expensive to do something about climate change. Let people in future generations deal with it. They'll be richer, they can afford it more. That's been the dominant message, and I go into a lot more detail in the book about that. It's sort of, amazing in some sense that these very smart and highly educated people, men, I should say men because they're almost all men, would be saying, well, yeah, it's true, we and our predecessors caused this problem, but we're going to let the people of the future deal with it. Of course, they sort of have the same, they're hypocritical in the present because they could also say, well, the people in the rich countries are richer. the poor people are the ones who are going to be stuck much more with the problem, let the rich ones pay. But they don't say that, actually.